Welcome to I Elevate. Shay, could you just introduce yourself, what you do now, slash what you did prior to this for our viewers?
Absolutely. So my name is Shea Belsky. I am an autistic self-advocate. Currently, I am a tech lead too at HubSpot. It's kind of a quasi-management and people individual contributor role. My previous role was as Chief Technology Officer and Technical Founder at Mentra. Mentra is an employment network for neurodivergent professionals, and at Mentra, I was in charge of their entire technical infrastructure, building an engineering team, compliance, privacy, security, all the things that an engineer would do. And on top of that, being a founder and interacting with people externally at events and with investors and public communications and lots of stuff like that.
Did you ever feel like when you were in college or graduating from college that you would get involved with starting a company? How did that happen for you? And how did you navigate that versus working a full-time job?
Originally, I started working at a bigger company. My first job out of college was at Wayfair, big furniture company. Then I went to HubSpot. So I left HubSpot and came back. And I always was aware of startups, like, oh, you could work for a startup, you could make a company or join someone else's company. But I was also aware of the fact that I was kind of newish in the world and I didn't want to overcommit to something if I didn't think that I could actually handle the challenge and if I couldn't give it the energy, the time, and the resources that it deserved. And when the opportunity with Mentra presented itself, and when I was given the opportunity to become the CTO and technical founder at Mentra, I was in the right place at the right time based on my skill set, based on my experience, and based on my level of comfort on taking on a risk, on taking on a really big, daunting, unknown challenge. So I had never written off me doing a startup in general, but it was definitely a place where I needed to be in the right space and in the right headspace and the right time to actually pull it off.
One of our questions too always comes up for young adults who are engineers or who are trying to become software engineers. There's a lot to learn, especially now with AI. Like, do you have
Yes.
any recommendations for young adults who are just maybe graduating with a software engineering degree and navigating what skills they should really focus on? And then, like, how do you think AI will kind of change how you interact with the technology as a software engineer? How does that shift your role?
As an engineer, no matter whether you use AI or not, you still need to have the ability to problem solve, to work with teammates, to understand what's going on and to troubleshoot. AI can't do that yet, not at the scale that it would replace a human to do. So your job is safe in the sense that when you are given a feature request or a new product or a challenge to solve by leadership, by a product manager, or by somebody else, you as a human still have to figure out what is the solution? What is the end goal that we're trying to build? What is the recipe? How do we actually create the step-by-step ingredients to actually solve it? And then how do we actually get that done? How do we implement the recipe and cook this up and create a product? AI helps facilitate that. It won't necessarily do your job for you, but it would certainly be very helpful. And I strongly recommend leveraging AI to help you do your job, but it is not going to do your job for you. It is certainly very helpful when you're writing integration or unit tests for code, when you're writing little snippets that could be reused over time, when you're trying to gain a better understanding into a problem with your code base, but it's not going to do your job for you. But I would be remiss if I would be off base if I didn't say that AI was really out there. It is really out there. It's big, it's in our faces. And as an engineer, you're going to really want to know how to work with AI, whether that's Copilot, whether that's Cursor, whether that's JetBrains AI. There's a bunch of different ones out there. Whichever one you're most comfortable with, pick it and really learn it.
So you had to hire other engineers to work with you on the team at Mentra.
Yes.
What was something that you looked for when you went to hire people to work with?
As a CTO, I knew that I needed to surround myself with people who honestly were smarter than me. I could not be the smartest person in the room all of the time. There were times when I was a subject matter expert, when I did know what was going on. But when I was hiring engineers, I was hiring them for specific roles, things that I didn't know a whole lot about and needed an expert to come in and own something, own a part of our architecture, own a part of the code base, or really drive something home that I did not have the expertise in. So we would hire a senior backend engineer, a senior front end engineer, someone for data science, someone for data analytics, all of which are areas that I have different amounts of intelligence and knowledge of, but not to the point that somebody who isn't true expert and really has experience in those fields, they will be able to take it all the way home. Whereas I might be able to figure it out, but someone else could come in and do it much faster, much better than me.
Surrounding yourself with people who just are way better than we are, right? It's like the how else can you grow? How else can you learn? And what a great skill as a leader to recognize. That shows a lot of humility. Can you share with our viewers something as a young adult that you maybe like a challenge that you really navigated? It could be at Mentra or in a relationship or just something that really took you some time to navigate. How do you overcome challenges in your life?
One of the number one challenges that I experienced was knowing how to give someone bad news. How are you going to tell somebody something that they don't want to hear or you don't want to say? I'm autistic, and I would very much describe myself as risk averse and conflict averse, and I don't like producing negative feelings in people. But sometimes, no matter what you do, you have to address the situation, you have to confront it, and the only way to do that might be in a way that's not great, that presents challenges, that creates stress. And the number one thing that I think helped me work through that feeling was establishing a level of comfort for me in articulating those things and getting to a level of comfort. Not that I was ever, I think, good at those things, but good enough. And I had a level of comfort being able to deliver them. I'm not saying I feel good about giving bad news, but I felt that in a pinch, I was comfortable doing what had to be done, even if emotionally I still felt awful about it, which is a valid thing to feel. I've had to lay people off. I've had to give people bad news. I've had to tell people things they didn't want to hear. And I don't feel good in the process of doing those things, but I feel confident that I said what I had to say, and I just did so with respect and with honesty for everything that was involved.
Adaptability and resilience are two
Yep.
things talk a lot about. And I think that there's a lot of anxiety right now, just in general with young people. Could you just speak to, like, obviously in a startup, you're constantly iterating and it does kind of challenge you emotionally. I like what you said about checking your emotions, recognizing they're valid, but then knowing that you need to do what needs to get done. I like to say resilience is bouncing back better. Do you feel like there was a time when you really felt like, okay, wow, yeah, that sucked. And now I'm through it and I'm in a better place. How did that affect you? Could you give any advice for somebody who might be going through a hard time right now with their career? How do you get through something like that?
I'm not sure what you're looking for, but I'll talk about it anyway. And if you want me to go deeper, I certainly can. I moved from Boston area to the Charlotte, North Carolina area where the rest of my company is. And in the part of that move, it's a big transition. There's a lot of things that are different. Like everything is different. And I brought my wife along with me too, which is a really big stressor as well. And the number one thing that I had to really focus on was supporting myself emotionally and supporting my wife emotionally and getting us through a time of a lot of change. We need new everything, new doctors, new appointments, new social activities, new hobbies, new run clubs, new everything. And recognizing what I had to get done, what needed to happen, and also acknowledging what I couldn't control and what I had to wait for or what was out of my control made me feel a little bit better. Like acknowledging what I can change, putting aside what I can't change, and having the wisdom to know the difference is a really important part of being able to manage change, to manage turbulence, and to manage stress. Because there's going to be a point in your life, no matter what's going on, where you're going to be really stressed out about something. You're going to want to do something about it, but you can't. And no matter how badly you want to do something about it to make a change happen, you can't. And stressing out about it isn't going to make things any better or worse. You just kind of have to let it go or wait for something to happen or put things in motion that can make a change. But ultimately, you might get to a point where you bottom out and you can't do anything else and you just have to be willing to move on and wait for what's next.
We talk a lot about letting go and having faith in, okay, this sucks right now, but the next thing will come, right? That kind of like patience mindset. Okay, fast forward to now, you're back at HubSpot. What are you working on?
At HubSpot, I am on the help desk onboarding and configuration team. You don't have to know what any of that means, but one of HubSpot's products is help desk. This basically, if a customer comes into HubSpot and they have customers who need support desk software, one of them products that HubSpot sells to their customers is help desk. And my team is responsible for helping people come onto the product, learn more about how to use help desk, and really become well equipped and really confident to solve problems that their business is facing.
And do you work remote or do you work in the office?
Kind of like a hybrid. We moved back to the Boston area, one, because HubSpot is in the area. That wasn't the primary reason for it, but certainly helps. I do like going into the office and I do certainly enjoy it. So I'd say I do like 2 or 3 days a week in the office. I'm trying to go in more frequently. I try to average 3 days a week in the office, but also me having moved back to the area recently, I've had a lot of appointments, a lot of doctor's appointments, just stuff like that. I'm just kind of catching up still.
When I was at Tufts, we took a sales and marketing class, and then we all got a tour of HubSpot. So the office is
On
pretty.
the way.
Yeah, the Boston office was pretty fun. I had
It's
a
really great.
couple friends who worked there after school. So yeah, I know exactly where you are. And I worked on the Charles River actually, so we would always kind of buzz by for lunch breaks near that mall.
They redid the whole food court in that mall right now. It's like really good local businesses in there. There's a really great Mediterranean place in there on Ushala. I love that place. It's great.
Next kind of question in my mind that I think would help people resume stuff. I get a lot of that. So, especially obviously, we don't have every young adult coming in needing career coaching is in tech. Even though tech is like predominantly what you see in the news right now with AI and all that kind of stuff, a plethora of young adults that are entering multiple different fields. However, because you're in tech, I wanted to take this opportunity to just sort of ask you what your thoughts are on these applicant tracking systems that resumes are going through. Why do you think people are getting selected out? Is there anything that people can do with their resumes, make sure they're formatted properly so they have a better chance of getting looked at if they're applying online?
I do think the number one thing that you should be doing is using a program like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or a what I would call traditional text editor to format your resume before you send it out. Also, as a pet peeve, please send resumes as PDFs and not as Word documents. Whether you're in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, they can both export to PDF. So pretty please have a cherry on top. That will definitely help you get for the ATSs faster. Submit as a PDF and not as a Word doc. On top of that, I do think that when people think about getting screened in or screened out or something like that, one thing that really helps is listing things that you had an actionable, measurable difference on something. I don't have the full insight into exactly what ATSs are looking for, but I do know that when you can communicate what your accomplishments were and articulate what you accomplished, what you did as far as numbers, as far as impact, as far as the difference that you made, that will set you apart whether an ATS reads it or a human reads it. It's better when a human reads it, obviously. But if an ATS reads it, I would imagine, and I don't know this to be 100% true, but I'm guessing, they're still looking for those actionable, measurable differences, whether it was a performance improvement, whether it was a test coverage improvement, whether you launched a feature that had thousands of users, or you solved a problem that could have affected thousands of users, whatever it was, being able to point to a number that you did or related to something you did will really set you apart. And I think it really speaks to understanding why the work you did was important and communicating that to recruiters and to ATSs when they inevitably read your resume.
Do you have any great tools or podcasts or anything related to tech that you digest and listen to that you would recommend?
I love listening and I love reading and listening to the Tiny Improvements newsletter. This is actually by another Charlotte Tech founder, Mike Bufalco. They're bite-sized emails that talk about not just technical things, but also tech adjacent and like soft skill technical things that I have really learned a lot from as well as part of being a people manager, a technical leader, and becoming more confident with my ability to get out there into the world of software engineering and put the hands onto the keyboard and then also have conversations and then think about problem solving and stuff like that. For the more technical things, I also like the Bytes newsletter. I get it once a week and it's good to kind of see like, oh, here's this little other little things that are happening kind of on the periphery of the web development world specifically. I do web development, so that's just a web dev specific thing. There are other newsletters out there for different niches and different areas of software engineering. Bytes is one of them, but I definitely enjoy the format of that and beginning to kind of gloss over things that are happening in the world of web development that I should be dimly or greatly aware of.
Is there anything right now that you're working on that you would, or I guess maybe not even you working on, but like what's going on in tech right now that you think is going to be really big in the next couple of years?
You've heard this a bazillion, jillion, trillion times, and I do think I'm going to say it anyway. Generative AI is getting pretty awesome and scary. It's fair to say that it's a simultaneously awesome and scary thing. Seeing what it can pull off with things with editors like Cursor and GitHub Copilot, really getting out there to help people write better code. It's not at the level yet where it's going to replace us completely, but I do think it's getting really, really good at looking at things that we're not aware of, helping explain things to us in ways that make sense to humans, and also different learning styles. If you have Cursor or Copilot and can tweak it to communicate with you, a neurodivergent person, in a way that you need to be communicated to, you can tell Cursor or GitHub Copilot to tell you those things in a way that works for you, which I think is a really, really amazing thing for people who communicate differently. Maybe the default way that Cursor tells you about things doesn't work for you. And you can tell Cursor as part of its rule set, when you communicate with me, I need you to simplify the language, or I need you to spell things out for me, or over explain, or under explain. Whatever it is, you can communicate with it in a way that works for you. On top of that, I give this recommendation to people all the time. Using those sorts of generative AI pilots and things like that are really powerful ways to also get judgment-free answers to questions. It's not going to judge you if you ask it a million, billion, zillion questions. You can ask it as many things as you want to. It's not going to judge you. It's not going to think you're annoying. It's a great way to ask questions to something without feeling like you're bothering somebody or taking up their time or wasting your time on the internet or searching for something. They're really, really awesome ways for newer engineers, newer people in the industry to ask questions and not feel like there's someone's going to get annoyed at them for the overload of questions they're being asked.
I feel like a lot of my friends lately, I've been chatting with them, and I've asked ChatGPT to give me relationship advice the other day. I said, no way. You didn't call me. People are now, I think, using chat to ask questions about figuring out stuff, maybe that they would turn to a friend or something usually, or maybe ask a colleague. And it's like, just pull up chat. And I feel like it is not a learning curve, but it's a resource that we have to get used to. Oh, wow, I could put this into chat and get a format for something, or I could ask what a typical template is. And I still remind young adults all the time, like, hey guys, embrace this new type of technology. It's going to continue to progress.
To add on to that, I think no, in the past couple of decades, knowing how to use an internet search engine, that was the thing you had to do. You had to be comfortable knowing how to structure a search query on Google, Bing, Stack Overflow, whatever it is, to get what you wanted out of it. And if you could confidently and comfortably use a search engine, great. Now we're getting to the point where you need to be comfortable and confident writing prompts to a generative AI agent and understanding with whatever model you're using in the context of it, what do you have to tell it? What do you have to train it on? How do you have to skew it or give it different parameters to get what you want out of it? And that is the direction that we're heading towards, knowing what you have to say, what you have to give it, and what you have to ask for. I use ChatGPT for Dolly for the image generation stuff from time to time. I love it. I love it for Dungeons and Dragons because I can make it do really creative things for me just for D&D, and it's great. But sometimes it's like really weird, and I have to go back and be specific about something that I actually wanted. And once I am specific, gives me what I wanted, and it's great, and it's so much fun. But if I'm not specific enough, or if I say something that's a little bit wrong, it'll like grab on to the wrong thing and be really not what I wanted.
I actually think that's really great for people though, because we always want an answer, but I think really working on what question do I have? What is it that I need? What is it that I'm seeking? That's a better way of training your brain to think analytically through a problem too, is like, what is it that I actually need to do to solve, to get to the problem or the answer for this problem? That's a great way of an optimistic outcome from having this around, I guess. Okay, so Shay, any last thoughts on if somebody's watching right now and they need a mentor or help in tech? Any kinds of thoughts you have for where to direct people to get help as they exit college and enter the working world?
As far as finding mentorship goes, there's a couple of different neurodivergent specific communities for those. Neurodiversity in Tech has a great Slack group, and they are an awesome place to meet people, to get to know one another, to find places where you can find mentorship, find a community, talk about things that are specific to neurodivergent people in technology. There's also a Discord, I think, somewhere. Someone made a neurodivergent techies Discord at some point. I don't know how to get into that one, but I know that it's out there somewhere. There's also like Facebook groups of neurodivergent people who are job hunting, career prep, stuff like that. There's a lot of really neurodivergent specific places that are starting to gain more popularity, starting to gain more steam, and are safe, inclusive spaces for folks to trade stories, ask for help, and become more confident. I'll also add that if you're a member of the LGBTQ community, Out in Tech is a great Slack community as well, if that is something that describes you.
Is there any way that people could follow you or learn more about what you're doing in your future? Because I feel like you're probably going to launch something else really cool.
That's the hope. So if you look up my name on the internet, you'll find me, Shea Belsky, Shea, B as in boy, Elsky. Only one of me. I'm on the internet. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on the web. I'm on Threads. I got my Blue Sky account back up and running again. So I'm on all those places. So if you want to stay tuned for all the stuff that's going on, follow me on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Threads.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Shay.
Thank you, Danielle. Have a great evening, everyone.